Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of roboticsandautomationnews.com. In this webcast, Shem Szot presents an overview of and insights into StickerYou, which prints labels and stickers for a wide range of products. Apologies for the poor sound quality in some parts of this recording.
My name is Shem Szot. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Operations here in StickerYou, and today we're going to be talking about the concept that I like to call manutech, or the rise of manutech per se. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about StickerYou. So StickerYou was started by our founder Andrew Whitkin in 2008. We were the first e-commerce worldwide to come up with an interface which lets customers come online and design their own stickers or labels, upload images, add text elements, etc., and place the order actually online. And then from that point on, the order would actually fully go through entire system, through our entire manufacturing system, and get produced with truly no interaction from our, manual interaction from our staff, other than somebody watching a printer or maybe quality controlling the order. We were a commerce company to also allow the ordering and design of temporary tattoos in 2014. And in 2014, we were also the first company to design an online interface vinyl lettering. So if you think of a sign door, which introduces your company and has some letters on, you could actually go to our interface, type in what it is that you want to order, and place that order, and our system converts it to a printable file, and then submits the order on our back end, and everything is printed automatically. So StickerYou at this time serves roughly about 11,000 buying customers per month. And overall, we have had over 330,000 customers. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we've achieved an average growth rate of around 44% between 2013 and 2018. So we're certainly a quickly growing company. And we attribute the majority of this growth to the fact that we really consider ourselves a technology company that's also a manufacturing company. And this is where this term manutech comes from. And it's what I like to frequently talk about. So what is it? What is a manutech company? Like I said, it's a company that started up with the technology, but also does manufacturing. But I want to go through a little bit of, the history of really how we got to today. So if we think of manufacturing as a whole and technology as a whole, obviously there were a number of different iterations through which technology went through, and I think it all started really with the Industrial Revolution. Of course, we had the Bronze Age, Iron Age, etc., but really, the Industrial Revolution between 1760 and 1830, roughly, allowed us to really get started on this path. During time, we figured out as a society how to harness the power of machines, and we really were focused on drive for efficiency, and specifically around material sciences. So if you think of things like things like styles or steam power, making technologies, specific machining tools. In the past, a lot of the machines were created manually, and then, during the Industrial Revolution, people started to think about concepts such as, replaceable machines, etc. But certainly, a lot of that unleashed a lot of power in manufacturing, and as a result, of this, the mindset changed, right? The Industrial Revolution introduced a mindset where people were thinking of the product first, and also integrating efficiency into the entire design mindset in terms of how do you operate how do you increase your efficiency, and how can you harness tools in order to do the work that people have in the past done. And certainly the fact that people started thinking about interchangeable parts, which prior to Industrial Revolution wasn't really a concept. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, you had basic tools, right? Once you finish the tool, you use another one. And during the Industrial Revolution, we started using tools that were replaceable. So you had a machine, so all of a sudden you could start changing a car. So products are manufactured to decrease cost, improve process turnaround times, improve consistency, and improve quality. But then the question became, what happened after the Industrial Revolution? And people typically think, oh, well, really not much happened maybe after the wars. But actually what happened is there was an increase in capacity that was generated as a result of all this. And this overcapacity and lack of consumption, or insufficient consumption to really go along with the Industrial Revolution capacity, created what used to be known as the Depression, but actually what we now call the Long Depression. So I'm not sure if you know, but there was a big depression between like 1870 and 1890, roughly. That was the result of this overcapacity that was created in the manufacturing segment. And there was a bit of a time where, invention slowed down, and not a lot of stuff was happening. And certainly that coupled with the contraction in monetary policy, and the fact, the Western civilizations kind of got away from the silver standard. That all aligned with this prolonged, there was a long depression, like I said, between 1870 and 1890. And then we get into a situation where we have the Second Industrial Revolution. And this is the part where, people really don't typically think about that. But in the Second Industrial Revolution, we had things like mass iron production, specifically electrification was very interesting, petroleum and chemical industries, introduction of rubberization, which was done by Goodyear, and actually also this gentleman by the name of Thomas Hancock, who also did similar work as Goodyear did in terms of vulcanized rubber, which is interestingly enough very close to the Hankook Tire Corporation, which is a Korean, but those things are somewhat unrelated. But regardless, all of this, engine and turbine in the Second Industrial Revolution, etc. So you saw a lot of very interesting things that happened there, and obviously all with machine-first mentality. Right? So how can we improve machines, processes, etc. And then obviously we get to the digital revolution. And I mean, between the Second Industrial Revolution and the digital revolution, you certainly had a lot of interesting things happen. Atomic age, jet age, space age, although typically they don't affect our manufacturing processes, but nevertheless, those are interesting. But then we get to the digital revolution, right, which is considered industrial revolution. And in that case, we shifted from purely mechanical and analog electronic technology to digital electronics. So we went, from vacuum tubes to transistors, and the microcomputer revolution, and then obviously internet and wireless technologies, and nowadays cloud computing, etc. Where did that bring us? That brought us to a place where you had your manufacturing segments as a result of the first, the Industrial Revolution, Second Industrial Revolution, and then in third Industrial Revolution, or the Digital Revolution, you had a lot of software innovation. So software in itself became a product. So obviously, first software tools, the early software tools were used for storing data, computation, that type of stuff. But then it became an app. So if you think of information management systems like CRMs or learning software or games even, or the tool I'm using today, PowerPoint, that became a product itself. So there's certainly a lot of software products out there, and companies that start off with a software first mindset. And that is kind of to today, or at least where we are as far as StickerYou is concerned, which is manutech. So this where manufacturing, the reason why it started with the Industrial Revolution, and the manufacturing and information technology or digital software-based products really cross. So we got industries at a crossroad. We have manufacturing and we have technology. And typically, I mean, obviously, companies that do manufacturing employ a lot of technology. But I think where manufacturing technology is different is where you have companies that start off with software first and then layer on the manufacturing side on top of all this. And this is really how StickerYou started. StickerYou started as a company where we were thinking of, what software innovations can we bring in order to really generate a paradigm shift in terms of how customers, whether it's end customer resellers, buy and interact with the product. I would define a manutech company is a software technology company which also happens to be in the manufacturing business. So we think of ourselves primarily as a software technology company, but we certainly see a lot of advantages of being in the manufacturing business because you can create differentiation. And so the question is why manutech, right? So first of all, if you think of businesses that have grown fastest recently, what are some of the most successful businesses that we have out there? Things like Amazon's, creating a platform for resell or cloud computing, platforms Airbnb or Lyft and Uber. What they've done is they aren't companies in themselves where they don't manufacture something, they don't produce something, but they create a platform. So being a manufacturing company that's a technology-first company lets you think of yourself as a platform and enables you to create platforms for people to collaborate in. So whether it's coming online, buying sticker and then making the sticker available for other people to buy, or whether it's something simpler than that, maybe more like buying a custom-made product and creating a platform for that. But nevertheless, it creates environments where the company can grow in very different ways from traditional companies where they had to go and actually invest in marketing and sales. But you can actually go and start creating a platform. So now you have an idea of platforms and you have the idea of manufacturing companies, and that's all coming together. And platforms also allow you to create simplicity and natural interactions. So if you think of and the way we go to market, it's very simple for a customer to go on our platform and actually interact with us. You don't have to deal necessarily with a process where you're submitting art, you're waiting for feedback, back and forth with somebody who's doing a proof for you, ordering the product, so the entire process of ordering becomes super simple, and the interaction is very natural. And if you think of other, companies that have done something, so for example, Microsoft is certainly a software company. They've also ventured into things like Xbox, right? And other companies have done similar things as far as gaming consoles go. But once again, it's the idea of creating an ecosystem where other people can develop stuff. So that's a great example of really a software company that's also a hardware manufacturer. But really, how they started is they started with the idea of creating a platform for the developers to come on and start developing the product, and create stickiness, just in a very similar way as Microsoft has recently been very successful with their .NET platform. They created the programming language. People are developing on that. Now they're exposing through the programming language the ability to hook up into their Azure cloud-based platform. But whether you look at hardware like an Xbox or .NET language, once again, the platform. In the example of Xbox, though, it is clearly a manufacturing technology / example. The other reason for really looking at manutech companies as something that can be very successful is the idea of customization. So if we look right now at some of the hottest trends on the market, customization allows you to get into the latest, to the newest frontier. I mean, everybody is now looking at how do I differentiate myself from somebody else. So if you think of things like, direct to printing or customized footwear or even customized packaging. So I'm not sure if you saw some of the stuff that's been going on in terms of companies going on where you can actually buy a package that has your name on it. I think Coke had a campaign. Another interesting company is Society6, which works with artists, where you can actually go and buy a pillow which is customized with that artist's artwork. And Society6 is also really a company when you think about it, because they're really a technology company first, and yet they also manufacture things. Some things may perhaps they outsource, but they certainly manufacture of bulk of their products. So if you want to buy a pillow or you want to buy a T-shirt with somebody's art on it, Society6 provides that actually platform. And so they're all a very successful company because they combine this idea of customization and the idea of natural interaction, software-first approach, supported by very strong manufacturing processes. Some other interesting brands. So I spoke about Microsoft, spoke about Society6. Certainly think about Android. When it was created, it was a software platform. And then Google proceeded, to partner with third-party manufacturers in terms of developing their own phones. And now, with the latest phones that they have on the market right now, they're actually doing most of the manufacturing themselves directly. So that's an example of a company that starts with a software-first approach and then proceeds into the hardware business. And obviously, what getting into the hardware business does, it gets you stickiness. So now customers don't see only the Android software platform, but they also see the hardware. And hardware is a little bit harder to displace than software. Nowadays, a lot of companies are seeing issues with software where software evolves so quickly that from one day to the next, you could be leader in software. The next day, there's just a bunch of libraries that you can include, and you can create something similar. So it's easy to disruptors in the software business, but to be a disruptor in the hardware business is hard. And so therefore, as a manutech company, you're protected both by your software IP as well as your hardware IP or your hardware processes or the differentiation that you have in hardware. And then we have Prodigy. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Prodigy before, but it was a place where kids can come online, sign up, do math or learning online, and they play around. But Prodigy has started to expand into things like toys, and it's not just merchandising, because obviously merchandising has been done, but things like connected toys and things like that. Those are certainly very interesting opportunities where, once again, you're a software company, but through technology and integration between the hardware product and your software platform, you're kind of planning both between both the software side as well as the hardware side. And the question is, what really drives manutech forward? First of all, user experience. I'm a huge believer that in all of these examples, whether you look at Android, Microsoft, StickerYou, our company, Society6, Prodigy even, user experience is critical. On the back end, automation is critical. As a manutech company, you obviously are differentiated by your user experience, but also differentiated by the entire integration. It also, because software and hardware are so closely coupled together in these types of companies, you have data-centric decision-making. And of course, every company wants to make data-centric decisions. However, in the case of a manutech company, that's more inherent into the nature of the company. And I think also hacking mentality is critically important. I think you have to change frequently, not be afraid to just try things out and get stuff out there. Technology certainly changes very quickly, and there are a lot of amazing technology things that can be done relatively quickly in order to be able to, obtain data, hook up your machinery, I'll talk a little about that a bit later. So what kind of do we use as a manutech company? Well, clearly we use user data. That's something that typically companies gather. We use operational data and financial data. All those three things come together. And the question is, what are some of the operational challenges that you experience in terms of gathering this data? So every company has these issues. How do you all your data and how do you pull it all together? So certainly, as a manufacturing company, you have to have real-time reporting from your manufacturing processes, workflow processes. You also have, as a technology company, you have everything that's associated with your software. And some of the challenges can be things like tracking of manufacturing processes, tracking of your operational efficiencies, tracking of your machinery efficiencies, certainly machine-level reporting, and not all machines can report data. And machines that can report data are not all web-enabled. So how to pull this information and how do you push it to a place where you can actually report on it? Well, luckily, machine manufacturers nowadays are spending a lot more time thinking about reporting. I think a lot of people are looking at when they're doing purchasing decisions in terms of what machinery they should get. One of the key questions is what kind of data can I get out? But the second thing is obviously we have IoT, Internet of Things. So we have native connectors for machines. We have sensing, and we have the cloud. So for things that do have connectors, you connect, and you have to figure out how to get this data out. For places where you don't have this information readily available, you can implement sensing. Certainly, we have done it in the company. And cloud. So pushing all this data to the cloud and reporting on it from the cloud. And obviously, there's a lot of great tools nowadays coming out that can do BI reporting out of the cloud, whether you're on Azure or whether you're on Amazon or even on Google. The great thing about IoT nowadays is that in the past, it would have been very difficult to pull all this data you had to have on-premise, computer connections, networks. Now, a lot more things are becoming IoT-enabled, and a lot of the hardware can start to report on this. So, as a company, we're focused on developing connectors in order to be able to get some of this data out, pushing it to the cloud where it's not available using sensors. And the great thing is you have all these readily available tools, like I mentioned. So if you look at something as simple as an Arduino, so schools, kids play with Arduinos, universities, but you can hook up an Arduino to a sensor and start feeding this data into the cloud. Or things like Raspberry Pi, where you can actually hook a Raspberry Pi, get all this data, and start pushing it out. And in our company, when we looked at getting all this data out, we looked at a number of different things. But the good thing is with a little bit of engineering know-how, and I'm not talking about people that are really engineers in this space, but somebody who perhaps engineering background, computer science background, you could actually relatively easily figure these things out. There's things like brain bots that I've played with in connection with a Raspberry Pi in order to pull data and send it to the internet. They have a great Ethernet I/O module, which actually lets you take the data and actually push it to the internet. And then you, of course, have sensors. So I've worked with a number of different sensing companies in order to push this data into, I think we used Arduino in our case, and Tritronic sensors. But anyways, the ability to actually get all this information, pull it out. You can, in the past, obviously, if you have traditional sensors, a lot of those sensors don't really necessarily work well with some of the more simple things like Arduino or Raspberry Pis. Then you have other solutions where you have connectors for transistors and sensors that you can easily push that data to the cloud. And also you have interesting software platforms out there that actually let you do programming around this. In our company, we played with something called Node-RED, which is a flow-based programming language. So that was kind of a thing. Anyhow, so pushing all this data, and that gives you a lot of power. Now, of course, in terms of something else that we are currently potentially looking at is outside of just getting the data out and the reporting out and implementing sensing technologies. The question becomes, where do we go next? This is an actual photo of a piece of machinery. So we do a lot of printing. Clearly, at StickerYou. Our products include roll-based as well as sheet-based products. And currently, a lot of the manufacturing processes that we have are people-based. But we've certainly started looking at things like you're seeing over here, where there are opportunities for robotics to start interacting with the printers in order to automate some of the workflows. So in summary, being a StickerYou, it's an extremely exciting time. We're always challenged both on the software side, on the marketing side. How do we push forward in terms of our platform online and user experience, but also how do we continually improve on the back end? So very excited certainly to be in a manutech company. I'm always interested in looking around at other manutech companies out there and what they're doing and what kind of innovations are bringing to the market. And that's it, presentation.
So this whole technology or the business model, the process, kind of falls in the area of some of the terms I've heard, like mass customization and on-demand manufacturing, where customers are able to be very specific about what they want. But what's your opinions of how the technology and the trend itself has developed over the years?
Yeah, actually very, very insightful and very good question. In the printing business, and if you're a traditional printer, and if you're a science shop, and somebody comes to you and they want to print 100 pamphlets, the issue with that in the industry is that's a very commoditized product. And there's a lot of places you can go and print a pamphlet. And so if you're in that business and you're selling the business of print, it's a very low margin business. There isn't a lot of extra things that you can add to that process in order to be able to extract money. So in the printing business, there's a lot of talk about value-added services. Look at companies like, for example, Vistaprint, right? Which is, and that, by the way, also an example of a manutech company, right? If you look at a company like Vistaprint, when you go order business cards, you can order business cards for $9.99. And I don't know exactly what Vistaprint's margins are, but I presume that on a $9.99 business card with free shipping, they're not making a lot of money on that. But they're making a lot more money when they are able to upsell customers. So if you look at a business card that has maybe a spot flood, so something that a business card with like a portion of it which has a shiny surface, a spot UV flood, and you're looking at getting more margin. So that opens a lot of opportunities. And so when we look at our product lines, there are basic products that you do. You do certainly stickers, labels. We do a lot of work on roll labels. Actually, a large percentage of our customers is commercial. We started off as a consumer company, really, where people could come online, buy 1, 5, 10 stickers. Now we're a business company where you're a business and you want just to print 1 decal or 1 vinyl lettering, you can. But we are looking a lot into other options in terms of how do you get away from a very simple process where you're selling to a more complex process. And if you look at print, a lot of the printer companies have certainly offered functionalities such as varnishes. So varnishes let you raise fonts, create this 3D effect. And a lot of the manufacturers are starting to get into things like multipass. So if you do a varnish 5 times or 10 times or 20 times over, you can actually start to build up some material. So if you look at the high value, high quality print that is done, that's very differentiated. Things that, for example, is done on gift boxes, maybe high-end wine bottles. You touch that, you feel that raised ink. And in certain cases, it's really, really, really waste. And there are companies out that specialize in this. And this starts to blur the line between 3D versus 2D, right? Because you have 2D companies that are starting to do a little bit of 3D. And now, customization is coming to the point where 3D thing opens up a whole new broad spectrum of opportunities, right? So if you're a company like StickerYou, and if you were to offer an interface where a customer could interact with some kind of a 3D designer in order to be able to design and have it custom printed by a company like ourselves and deliver the product on demand, that opens up really, really interesting opportunities. And there are certainly printers already on the market that are capable of commercializing that. So there are printers that can print, things that are 6 feet tall and 3-4 feet wide. So those are some of the largest printers out there. We see the limitations of the current technologies. I think some of the larger printers can really work with one type of a polymer. So you're sort of limited in terms of what the functionality of that model that you're printing can be. But certainly in the future, if you had potentially conductive materials, conductive polymers, other polymers, etc., combined with different coloring technologies, you're looking at some really awesome things that can get done. The one challenge that I see is that the interface has to be, from a user ordering perspective, has to be simple enough. So if you look at something as simple as a folding box, for example. So a folding box is an interesting example, right, where you're starting with a 2D model, but then you crease it and you fold it, and all of a sudden you have a 3D object. So if you look at folding boxes, for example, that gets into an area where you're potentially having to deal with a more complicated design experience. You need somebody who really understands how that product would fold, etc. And if you take that into a 3D world, that design experience becomes a lot more complicated. How do you create an interface online, which is almost like a CAD tool, let you do the design and then have the manufacturing process support that? So certainly there's tons of opportunities. I think for us, the opportunity right now in the short term is to look at those types of embellishments that let you get a 3D effect that's not quite 3D printed, but certainly you're getting to thicknesses of a couple of millimeters thick, which really create the differentiation. And you can actually start to get some utility out of that. So at the long term, it's certainly an opportunity for us, and for the industry as a whole, I think it's a massive opportunity. The challenge is, how do you make that user interaction from an ordering perspective simple enough actually people can order?
Thank you.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.